Smoke drifted around as the smell of sulfur and charred bodies lingered heavily in the air. A great winged beast hovered in the air, controlling smaller monsters and mutants. Wang Yuè brought her sword up. Water circled around it as she brought it down. Rocks and pieces of mutants went flying as a large trench appeared in the wake of her sword strike. Sweat, soot and blood dripped down her face. Her breath came in heavy gasps. She had been fighting in this long, never-ending battle for the past month without any breaks. She was the only one left in the battlefield, and could not send word back to her sect to ask for backup. Her companion, a phoenix beast, had left her long ago. An ache pinched at her heart every time she thought about how he had abandoned her. She had done everything she could to take care of him, and to raise his power until he could take human form, and she had even thought of him as family, and he had coldly left her behind in battle. When the monsters started closing in on her, she gave up on using water and switched to air. With each swing of her blade, 100 wind blades armed out of her blade in every direction. She had trained in elemental spiritualism, mastering 2 types of elements. More time passed and the monsters around her only thinned by a little. Just how many monsters and mutants are there? Yuè screamed internally, full of frustration. The beast flying above the battlefield released a torrent of fire. Yuè quickly raised a wall of water while changing the airflow current. The fire rained down on her. Wang Yuè. The scream tore her concentration. Flying above her at her back was Lin Quing. He was her phoenix contracted beast. The one she had believed had left her. Her heart gave a painful twist and hope started to rise within her. That little wisp of hope died the instant she saw who was tucked in his arms. Li Mei's elder sister Mei had been with the sect for close to 50 years. She had also been the person Lin Quing had wanted to contract with, but because her spiritual core power was too weak, she was unable to complete the contract signing. Lin Quing. Elder sister Mei, the 2 names left Wang Yu's lips like a defeated sigh. Wang Yuè, Lin Quing sneered. A ring of pure white fire encircled him like a living, breathing snake. The fire writhed, snaking out of the circle, heading straight for the weakened Wang Yuè. The fire whip hit Wang Yuè and sent her flying back toward the monstrous flying beast that was controlling the smaller monsters and mutants. The last thing Wang Yuè felt was the scraping of teeth and the burning fire that seared the skin from her bones. Lin Quing pulled his lovely Mei closer to him. The evil little sister Wang Yuè, who had summoned the great beast and tortured the lovely Mei for years, was finally gone. Lin Quing watched as a shimmering blue light poured out of the great beast's maw. The shimmering light spread throughout the wasteland, sticking to the barren ground and the contaminated mutants like a sticky second skin. Lin Quing looked on with confusion and curiosity. He knew from Li Mei that her little sect sister Meni Yue was practicing the forbidden arts, which was why the great beast had been summoned. But why was Wang Yu's spiritual energy leaking out and purifying the contaminated mutants? This shouldn't be happening if Wang Yuè had truly studied the forbidden arts. Lin Quing, Li Mei's soft voice called out to him. Now that little sister is gone for good, the great beast will go back to sleep. Let us go home. Lin Quing waited for a few minutes, watching the scene unfold before him. It was just as Li Mei had said. The great beast was slowly lowering itself onto the ground, its eyes drifting shut. After making sure the beast was asleep, Lin Quing wrapped his arms tightly around Li Mei and shot off across the sky, rapidly heading back to the sect that sister Mei so dearly loved. Master, we did it! Li Mei exclaimed happily as soon as their feet touched the ground. The master's wizened face turned solemn. That means little sister Yue was truly behind the curse summoning, came his cracked and grief-stricken voice. The sect decided to not hold a funeral for the traitor. 2 days later, members of the sect who had lost friends and family to the great beast marched to Wang Yu's home to burn it down, but for some reason, Li Mei stopped them. She told them that there may be valuable materials and potions within her home, and that they shouldn't do anything reckless. Lin Quing grew curious. Li Mei had stopped them from destroying the home, but she herself did not enter, until one night when Lin Quing was sleeping, he felt Li Mei's presence leave their home, and head for the trader's cottage located on the outskirts of the sect's territory. Cloaking his presence, he followed Li Mei. Li Mei entered the cottage with a cautious step. Peering in the window, Lin Quing watched as the elder sister and a strange man picked up books from Wang Yu's bookshelf and combed through them. I can't believe little sister kept a book on everyone in the sect. It'll make our job much easier, Li Mei said with a chuckle. I agree. All of the members' allergies, weaknesses, and individual strengths are listed here, commented the strange man. Grab only the books containing information on the elders. We'll burn the place down after we get them all, Li Mei commanded, her soft face twisting into an expression Lin Quing had never seen. The two of them left the cottage under the cover of the night. While Lin Quing hid in the shadows, Li Mei threw a potion containing a dark, murky liquid. When the potion struck the ground, a blazing fire roared to life, crackling with loud, sudden pops. As soon as the backs of Li Mei and the stranger were gone, Lin Quing stepped forward and used his spirituality to put the flames out. He entered through the burnt and broken doorframe. He looked around the small cottage with a small pain in his heart. He had spent nearly 10 years here with Wang Yuè. He had hated it then, but it had still been his home. His finger ran over the ashen table as memories rose to the surface. On the far wall was the wall-to-wall bookshelf. Most of the books were burnt and turning to ash, but there were some that were still in good condition. Lin Quing could feel Wang Yu's spiritual essence clinging to them strongly. They must have been books that she had read over and over again, caring deeply for what is written in their pages, Lin Quing thought to himself. He remembered seeing her writing in a few of them, but he never paid attention to what she had actually been writing. Lin Quing scanned the books that were still intact. One bore the title of Spiritual Core Breathing Techniques. Curious, Lin Quing picked it up, his eyes scanning over the neatly looping handwriting. The book were her personal notes on a specific breathing technique that she had developed, one that worked 24/7 and even while one was sleeping. It was different from the other techniques he had seen the sect members and Big Sister Li Mei use. Interesting, he thought to himself, his interest piqued. Flopping down onto the charred floor, Sutinus rising from the action, he closed his eyes as he mentally followed the instructions that had been written down. It wasn't long before Lin Quing could feel spiritual essence wing through his blood pathways, synchronizing to the beat of his heart. When he opened his eyes, he realized that daylight was slowly peeking out from behind the mountains. He picked up all the intact books and carefully stored them away in a hidden space that only he could control. After leaving the cottage, he didn't even turn around to watch as he set the falling apart building ablaze once again. He cleaned himself off to rid himself of the smell of smoke as he walked down the path leading back to the home he shared with Li Mei. Li Mei wasn't there when he got back. He had thought about looking for her, but decided to pretend to be asleep. He wasn't sure why he decided to do this, but he had a feeling he didn't want Li Mei to find out that he had followed her. While he was lying there, he focused on the breathing technique listed in Wang Yu's notebook. He realized that it became easier to control it. His core was starting to stabilize even more. Li Mei came back an hour later. She quietly entered the room and checked on Lin Quing before creeping to the bathing room. The next day, Li Mei left him behind to go shopping at the market. Lin Quing pulled out the notebooks he had taken from Wang Yu's place and shifted through them, reading the title on the spine of each one. Yichen? Who is Yichen? Lin Quing could not recall anyone in the sect with that name, though it wasn't like he actually remembered anyone's name. He flipped it open and read the first page. I met a phoenix today at the contract ceremony. He became my contracted beast due to an issue with elder sister Mai's spiritual core. Lin Quing's eyes widened as he realized the words written there were describing him. The phoenix is quite stubborn, though I cannot blame him since I am not the human he wanted. I can only help him grow stronger until it is time for the next contract ceremony in 10 years. But I am afraid elder sister's core will still be weak. I'll have to look into a way to help her complete the contract ceremony without any backlash. Lin Quing flipped to the next page, still feeling bewildered. He had no clue that Wang Yuè was planning on allowing him to go to Li Mei. He remembered Li Mei running to him crying, telling him that Wang Yuè had bullied her while telling Li Mei that she would never hand Lin Quing over to him. He pushed the shock and confusion down as he continued reading. I tried to teach the phoenix my breathing technique today, but he brushed it off. On another note, I cannot keep calling him Phoenix since that is what he is, not who he is. He is bright and beautiful, so the name Yichen comes to mind. I'm afraid to call him that aloud. He has his own mind and way of thinking, so I will only call him that in my writing. I will wait until he achieves his human form and he can give himself his own name. Yichen? That was the name she wanted to give me. Lin Quing thought to himself, afraid to admit that it was actually an excellent name. He continued reading, keeping an ear out for Li Mei. He had found out that Wang Yuè had thought of him as family and was willing to do anything to help him find his own happiness. Did I have the wrong idea about her? No, she still summoned the great beast. He told himself, trying to stop the suspicion from bleeding into his heart. He placed the book down and grabbed the one that had his name on it. He laughed when he read through it. Some of what was written there was the same as the one in the Yichen book, but there were some things that were different. But that wasn't what made him laugh. What had made him laugh was that she had deliberately changed some of the information about it. She had written everything about him in a misleading way to throw off anyone who may read the notebook. One of the things Wang Yuè had changed was switching out one of Lin Quing's weaknesses. It was an embarrassing fact, but there was a rare flower that disrupted his spiritual essence. But Wang Yuè had listed a fruit instead of the flower. It appeared that it was her way of protecting him. Lin Quing closed the book and leaned back, his eyes growing heavy. His heart ached for the first time since Wang Yu's death. He had realized too late that he had misunderstood her. But how could he have known? The woman had always been quiet, keeping mainly to herself. And it wasn't as if he had ever bothered to get to know her. He had never even looked at any of the books she had lining her shelves, even though he had seen her writing in them before. With a heavy breath, Lin Quing finally stood up. He headed toward the sect's shopping district. Li Mei was nowhere to be found. He wandered around, trying to pick up Li Mei's presence, which he finally did after some time. He found her presence appearing at the foot of the mountain path, like a carelessly sloppy hidden trail. Are you sure your plan will work? A strange man asked, the same one from the night before. Of course. Li Mei smiled, and it was unlike any smile Lin Quing had seen before. Li Mei usually wore a soft and sweet smile that spoke of insecurities. This one, though, spoke of a sinister confidence. The bird brain of a beast is so besotted with me, Li Mei laughed. It will only be a matter of time before I get his heart feather. Lin Quing's heart dropped upon hearing her words. The heart feather was a special feather that all phoenixes possessed. The feather could grant the phoenix a chance at rebirth, or to allow their mate to have a second chance at life. The stranger shook his head. You really want that feather, huh? Li Mei's smile turned even darker when she answered him. I need it if I want to get rid of that man. It shouldn't be long now. Lin Quing felt his heart twist painfully in his chest. But the pain was quickly drowned out by a quickly rising fury. Lin Quing revealed his presence and stepped out from behind the tree. My heart feather. Is that all I am to you? His spiritual energy was rising to the surface and small flames were starting to appear around him. Li Mei's body froze and the man beside her turned pale. Quing, Li Mei called softly. Her body reanimated as she shifted her expression to one of the lovely and kind elder sect sister. You must have misheard minus before she could even finish speaking. Li Mei's feet were dangling in the air, and her back was pressed painfully against a tree as Lin Quing's cold hand curled around her neck. I have heard your words and read the books. Li Mei's face paled when she heard his words. The books? You read Wang Yu's books? No, you would have doubted my words if you had read them. Li Mei said with cold decisiveness, no longer pretending. I read them last night, Lin Quing said coldly. Was anything you said true? You pretended to love me just to take my heart feather. You told me that Wang Yuè was using forbidden dark arts when it was her own hard work that allowed her to advance so quickly. You framed your words to make it seem like she didn't care about me when she thought of me as family. You told me that she refused to give me to you at the next contracting ceremony, when that was not true. Lin Quing's voice rose with each accusation. Li Mai's eyes widened before a sinister chuckle spilled out of her mouth. I guess there's no need for this facade anymore. Her lips twist into a fearful smile. Are you going to kill me? She asks mockingly. The fire around Lin Quing flickers before burning even brighter. The stranger standing behind them starts to run, but Lin Quing instantly sent his fire to him without looking. A pitiful scream filled with pain was left hanging in the air. Li Mai's face darkened and that sinister sneer of hers turned into a snarl. How dare you? You are a wretched, stupid beast. He was the son of Silver Wind's sect master. Li Mei screamed vehemently. Silver Wind? Lin Quing questioned silently. Are they not rivals of the Gentle Spring clan? The Gentle Spring was the name of the clan they belonged to, the one that Wang Yuè had fought tirelessly to protect. You were in cahoots with Silverwind. Lin Quing asked, though his voice was as steady as if he were making a statement. Li Mei smiled. Of course, I was planning on dismantling this sect piece by piece on the inside because the man I wish to kill is the master's bastard son. That man killed my parents and my siblings. Lin Quing listened to her tirade with a sneer and a heavy heart. His hand tightens around her throat, his nails scraping against the soft skin until blood beaded to the surface. The fire that burned angrily around him licked at her feet. Her lips twisted in agony, and she bit down hard on her lower lip to prevent herself from screaming. It was a shame how pitifully weak she was. She was supposed to be a dual cultivator, but yet she was unable to fight back. Tell me, who was truly responsible for awakening the great beast? Lin Quing demanded, his voice cold. Li Mei didn't answer, but the look she gave him told him everything. Lin Quing did not hold back. He released the precious, thin hold on his spiritual qi. The flames licked up Li Mai's body, burning everything agonizingly slow. She was finally unable to hold back her screams. Lin Quing stepped back as he watched her body turn to ash, the smell acrid and heavy in the air. Lin Quing turned around and closed his eyes. With a deep breath he called forth the heart feather he kept bound closely to his heart. He should keep it for himself, but he felt like he owed it to Wang Yuè since he was the one who abandoned her, the one who killed her. A bright, warm light slowly radiated out from the feather before slowly enveloping him. A dizzying sensation filled him, and he felt his energy drain and life essence weaken. His heart thumped loudly, frantically, before slowing altogether. Everything faded before turning completely black. It appears he prefers elder sister Li. Came the all-familiar voice. Bright light flooded his senses when his eyes popped open upon hearing Wang Yuè. The first scene that registered in his mind was his small phoenix form nuzzling against a pink hanfu. He squawked and flapped his wings, putting distance between him and the pink hanfu. Looking around, he found the cold-looking Wang Yuè standing further away. He did it. He had gone to the past. As he chirped happily, he suddenly grew tired when he realized how weak he had become. He fought through his weakened state and flapped his wings, haphazardly flying to Wang Yuè. He landed on her shoulder and pecked at her sleeve, tugging at it with his beak. He squawked wildly, flapping his wings. Wang Yu's hand slowly came up and settled against the top of his head, warm and firm. Wang Yuè said nothing as she gently patted him. Lin Quing nuzzled his head against her hand. Ah, little phoenix! Li Mei exclaimed, jumping up from her seat to rush over to where Wang Yuè and Lin Quing were. As she reached out to him, Lin Quing bit her hand. Ah! The sect master walked over to them, his hand running through his long yet neatly groomed beard. It appears that the phoenix has chosen you, little sister, said the sect master. Wang Yuè looked down at Lin Quing with measured eyes. Will you agree to contract with me? She asked in a steady tone. Lin Quing nodded his head eagerly. There is no way he would ever go to someone else. He had done a terrible wrong to Wang Yuè in the past, and had learned deeply from that mistake. Li Mei looked at them with envious eyes hidden behind a saddened expression. Everyone ignored, though Lin Quing did keep an eye on her. In this life, he will need to follow her and find evidence of every wrong she has committed. The contract signing went well and Lin Quing was soon back at home with Wang Yuè. The small, well-kept cottage was intact and no longer destroyed. "This will be your new home, my phoenix," Wang Yuè said with a soft smile. Lin Quing made a small noise that almost sounded like a purr. The days went by in a somewhat peaceful daze. Wang Yuè would tell him stories, mainly history, and would prepare potions and herbs for him. When Wang Yuè was busy practicing, Lin Quing would secretly follow Li Mei. During all that time, Lin Quing had been practicing the breathing technique that he had found out in his last life. He had become so accustomed to doing it that it came automatically to him. His core level increased, but at a much slower pace than in his last life. He could only assume it was the consequence of using his heart feather the way that he had. He had used it to rewind time instead of just bringing Wang Yuè back. 3 years passed and he had finally found enough evidence against Li Mei, which he told Wang Yuè and the others about by using his claw to write in the dirt. By the 8th year, Lin Quing could finally transform into his human form, but he did not reveal it, not yet. Even if Wang Yuè did not remember the past, he still did, and he was too ashamed to show himself fully in front of her. But that didn't mean he couldn't milk her for her attention while staying in his phoenix form. At least he could hide his emotions better while as a phoenix. In the 9th year, the portal for the secret realm opened. It was the last event right before the awakening of the great beast. But without Li Mei, the great beast should stay asleep, and even if it didn't, then he would be by Wang Yu's side to help her fight. But why did the beast go to sleep with Wang Yu's blood? And why were most of the contaminated mutants destroyed by her blood-soaked spiritual essence? That's something Lin Quing still hadn't found the answer to. The two of them, Lin Quing writing on Wang Yu's shoulder, stood with 19 other disciples in a large stone, circular area. 3 other sects were gathered there as well with their 20 best students. The minutes tucked down and the portal finally opened in front of them. Everyone ran forward, heading straight for the portal. The portal spit everyone out in random places. Thanks to Lin Quing being contracted to Wang Yuè, he was transported to the same location she was. Even though only 3 days will pass in their world, 3 years will pass inside the secret realm. They didn't immediately set out to hunt down contaminated mutants. Instead, Wang Yuè set out making a small cabin for them to use as a shelter. Life was surprisingly peaceful. Wang Yuè practiced her martial arts. Lin Quing learned that the elemental spiritualism that she practiced was far greater than he thought. Not only did she have an affinity with water, but she also had one for air. Most only had an affinity for one type of element. Those who had an affinity with 2 or elements were usually dragons or dragonkin. Wait, was Wang Yuè a dragonkin? Could one of her ancestors have been a dragon? The great beast had also been a dragon, a dark one that was slowly being contaminated, but a dragon nonetheless. But how would Wang Yuè being a possible kin have something to do with the great beast? Lin Quing unfortunately doesn't know much about dragons. At night, they hunted contaminated mutants since that was when they were most active. During the evening, they would hunt food to cook and sleep. During that time, Lin Quing would sometimes shift into his human form and sleep next to her, though he was careful not to touch her, and he made sure to keep his presence small. During their 2nd year there, they ran into a white twin-tailed tiger. The massive beast rained down lightning upon them. Wang Yuè drew her sword. Using the wind to increase her speed, she dodged each lightning bolt, brandishing her sword in beautiful, unwasteful swings. Lin Quing, still in his phoenix form, assisted Wang Yuè. When one final swing, the white twin-tailed tiger finally fell. But they didn't expect for the monster's body to implode, sending out thousands of lightning bolts. Wang Yuè jumped back, but her foot landed too close to the edge of the cliff, and she slipped. Lin Quing momentarily forgot that she could manipulate the air around her. He flew to her, shifting into his human form to catch her. Wang Yuè looked up at him with wide eyes, not from shock but from something else. "You've gained your human form," Wang Yuè stated, her hands pressed against Lin Quing's chest. "I have," Lin Quing said, answering her non-question. His smile was confident on the outside while his heart stuttered in his chest. Are you not going to ask me my name, instead of calling my phoenix? Wang Yu's head tilted and a small smile appeared on her lips. Well then, my little phoenix, what is your name? Wang Yuè, Lin Quing answered, ready to start completely over in this new life. A small yet radiant smile appeared on Wang Yu's face. It's nice to finally meet you, Wang Yuè. Does this mean you'll stop sneaking into my bed? Lin Quing paused, his body going still. She knew. You knew? Wang Yuè nodded, her lips twisting into a smirk. You did not hide it very well, she answered simply. Does that mean I can't sleep in the same bed anymore? Lin Quing asked in a pleading tone, a smile on his lips. This was the first time he had ever spoken to Wang Yuè like this, and honestly enjoyed it. I never said that. You don't need to sneak in. She brought her hand up and gently patted the top of his head, an action she did frequently while he was a bird. We're family after all. Lin Quing leaned his face down and nuzzled her neck. We are, he said softly. Smoke drifted around as the smell of sulfur and charred bodies lingered heavily in the air. A great winged beast hovered in the air, controlling smaller monsters and mutants. Wang Yuè brought her sword up. Water circled around it as she brought it down. Rocks and pieces of mutants went flying as a large trench appeared in the wake of her sword strike. Sweat, soot and blood dripped down her face. Her breath came in heavy gasps. She had been fighting in this long, never-ending battle for the past month without any breaks. She was the only one left in the battlefield, and could not send word back to her sect to ask for backup. Her companion, a phoenix beast, had left her long ago. An ache pinched at her heart every time she thought about how he had abandoned her. She had done everything she could to take care of him, and to raise his power until he could take human form, and she had even thought of him as family, and he had coldly left her behind in battle. When the monsters started closing in on her, she gave up on using water and switched to air. With each swing of her blade, 100 wind blades armed out of her blade in every direction. She had trained in elemental spiritualism, mastering 2 types of elements. More time passed and the monsters around her only thinned by a little. Just how many monsters and mutants are there? Yuè screamed internally, full of frustration. The beast flying above the battlefield released a torrent of fire. Yuè quickly raised a wall of water while changing the airflow current. The fire rained down on her. Wang Yuè. The scream tore her concentration. Flying above her at her back was Lin Quing. He was her phoenix contracted beast. The one she had believed had left her. Her heart gave a painful twist and hope started to rise within her. That little wisp of hope died the instant she saw who was tucked in his arms. Li Mei's elder sister Mei had been with the sect for close to 50 years. She had also been the person Lin Quing had wanted to contract with, but because her spiritual core power was too weak, she was unable to complete the contract signing. Lin Quing. Elder sister Mei, the 2 names left Wang Yu's lips like a defeated sigh. Wang Yuè, Lin Quing sneered. A ring of pure white fire encircled him like a living, breathing snake. The fire writhed, snaking out of the circle, heading straight for the weakened Wang Yuè. The fire whip hit Wang Yuè and sent her flying back toward the monstrous flying beast that was controlling the smaller monsters and mutants. The last thing Wang Yuè felt was the scraping of teeth and the burning fire that seared the skin from her bones. Wang Yu's blackened vision cleared and the burning, searing pain that had washed her very soul was gone. There was a ringing in her ears and her head swam for a second. Her vision cleared all the way, and she found herself standing in the council hall, or more accurately, the room in the council hall, where the sacred beasts they had caught were kept. A large runic circle was carved in the stone floor in the center. Several members of the clan were there, and Wang Yuè was surprised to find a few members that she had known had died. Oh, I think he likes me. Wang Yuè turned toward the voice and her eyes quivered at the sight. A small phoenix was rubbing its head against Li Mei's arm. Lin Quing, Wang Yuè thought with bitterness. She turned away and was prepared to look for another beast when she heard Lin Quing squawk frantically. She turned back to him out of habit, afraid that something had happened. She saw Lin Quing flapping his wings wildly before taking off in flight. Suddenly the phoenix landed on her shoulder, his claws digging into her shoulder, but not hard enough to tear her hanfu. He then suddenly started grabbing at her sleeve with his beak. Out of habit, she brought her hand up to and gently patted his head. "Ah, little phoenix," Li Mei exclaimed loudly with a hurt tone as she jolted up from her seat. She reached out a slender hand to Lin Quing, only to be bitten by him. Why was he acting like this? Lin Quing didn't act like this in her previous life. Had he also been reborn with his memories intact? If that is so, then why was he acting like this? Did he and elder sister Li Mei have a falling out after I died? The questions kept piling on Wang Yuè, although her face didn't show her inner turmoil. The sect master stepped forward and gently rubbed his beard with his wizened hand. "It appears that the little phoenix has chosen you, little sister Wang." Wang Yuè looked at Lin Quing in his phoenix form with a defeated sigh. Even though she knew better, Lin Quing was still her family, even if he had betrayed her in their previous life. "Is this what you really want?" Wang Yuè asked, showing no emotion in her facial expression or tone of voice. Lin Quing trilled and a small smile twitched at the corners of her lips. She followed behind the sect master and went and stood in the middle of the runic circle. Standing across from her was Lin Quing in his phoenix form. Wang Yuè picked up a small knife and made a slice on her hand, and watched as the blood ran down to pool in the center of the circle. Lin Quing brought up his claw and made a small slice on his chest. This was already different from her past life. Because Lin Quing had not agreed, Wang Yuè had to take the brunt of everything, almost draining her spiritual qi just to overpower him. She would not have done that, but it was the only choice until she could find a way to help elder sister Li. But that was all in her past life. Wang Yuè and Lin Quing watched as the circle turned bright. Before the light disappeared, a symbol appeared on Wang Yu's hand while a matching one appeared on Lin Quing's chest, linking the two of them together. Lin Quing flew up to her shoulder and perched happily there. Wang Yuè left the hall then, leaving behind the others who were looking for beast partners of their own, and Li Mei. They arrived at her cottage and Wang Yuè passed by the days acting as she had in the past life. She fed Lin Quing the herbs she found out in the wild that would help with his growth, teach him her breathing techniques, which he surprisingly willingly learned in this life, like in his last where he would refuse and fly away. But the true change in this life compared to the last was the fact that Lin Quing would stick by her side, practically begging for her attention. Elder sister Li Mei showed up a few times when she thought Wang Yuè wasn't there, only to be turned away by a furious Lin Quing. The days turned into years and everything passed by peacefully and productively. Because of her knowledge from her past life, she was able to advance even quicker since her soul remembered the feeling. The only problem was that Lin Quing seemed to be developing even slower even while trying new techniques and pure-grade potions. She had thought about using her blood to help him, but had denied that idea just as she had in her past life, since she wasn't sure how a phoenix would react to receiving the blood of a dragon kin. That's right, her grandfather had been a purebred dragon who had ascended to the heavens after her grandmother's passing. Soon, 3 years crept up on them. That's when things had really changed and Wang Yuè knew for a fact that something had happened between Lin Quing and elder sister Li Mei. Lin Quing led her, the sect master and a few others to a hidden cottage by writing in the dirt with his claws. They had discovered that elder sister Li Mei was originally from the Silver Wind clan and was secretly married to a higher-ranking member. She had infiltrated the Gentle Spring clan 50 years ago to kill the sect master and his bastard son. The clan severed Li Mei's connection with her core and cast her out of the clan. The elderly sect master, who was close to 600 years old, decided to retire from being the sect leader and went into seclusion. And before long, 9 years had gone since Wang Yuè had signed the binding contract with Lin Quing. They were standing inside the ancient grounds with 3 other clans, waiting for the portal to the secret realm to open. Lin Quing was perched on her shoulder, his head nuzzling against her neck as he watched the unopened blue portal with excitement. Wang Yuè sensed the growth within Lin Quing but held back her curiosity, knowing that he would reveal his human form whenever he was ready. The portal flickered before them before expanding in size. When it was opened, the 20 top students from each of the 4 clans gathered surged into the portal. Wang Yuè landed on soft ground with graceful steps. She looked around and found that she was in a vast and dense forest. The only presence around her was Lin Quing. From the feel of it, they must have been transported far away from the others. Lin Quing chirped from her shoulder, fluttering his wings a little as he looked around in curiosity. They had been transported to an entirely different location than in their first life. Shall we build a cottage? Wang Yuè asked. The portal for the secret realm would stay open for 3 days in the mortal world, but 24 hours in the mortal world was equivalent to 1 year in the secret realm. Wang Yuè drew her sword and swung it. Gusts of wind came out, not from using her spiritual root, but just from the sheer force. Several trees ranging in the dozens fell in one fell swoop. Before the night fell, Wang Yuè had the cottage built and simple furniture made. During the day, Wang Yuè practiced her sword techniques and cultivation, and during the night, she and Lin Quing went off to hunt the contaminated mutants that inhabited the secret realm. The secret realm had one unique quality: it could lock however many mutants and monsters that were killed by each student inside, and that number would be shown on a screen back in the mortal world. It was only in the evening time when she would hunt for food and sleep. They were unnecessary for someone of her cultivation level, but combining sleep with her breathing technique actually increased the rate in cultivation. It was during those times when she was asleep when she could feel Lin Quing sneaking into her bed. But she could feel that his spiritual presence felt much smaller than the actual presence that she felt. Lin Quing must have been able to reach his human transformation. Wang Yuè kept it to herself, allowing Lin Quing this courtesy. A year into the secret realm, Wang Yuè came across a twin-tailed white tiger with the lightning spiritual root. Wang Yuè drew her sword, but she didn't attack first. The twin-tailed tiger rained lightning down around them. Wang Yuè dodged each strike, while sending out short swing blade strikes in between. Lin Quing stayed in his bird form and assisted her by using his fire to protect her, and sending out strikes to distract the twin-tailed tiger in between her sword strikes. After a long and serious battle, the tiger finally fell to her sword. But just as the tiger's body fell, it imploded in an array of lightning strikes. Wang Yuè jumped back but miscalculated. Her foot landed on the edge of the cliff, and she started falling. She wasn't too worried about falling because even at this distance she would still be fine, and if she truly didn't want to fall, she could always ride the wind. But before any of that could happen, strong arms wrapped around her, and a worried Lin Quing looked down at her. His glorious phoenix wings spread out from his back, and Wang Yuè could feel the heat from their flame. She looked up at him and did not forget to widen her eyes minutely. She still did not want him to know that she remembered their past life. It was a small, selfish part of her that did not wish for him to know that she knew. "You've gained your human form," Wang Yuè stated, her hands pressed against Lin Quing's chest. "I have," Lin Quing said in answer. He smiled confidently, but Wang Yuè could feel his heart beating rapidly within his chest, alerting her to just how nervous he was. "Are you not going to ask me my name, instead of calling my phoenix?" he asked, his voice sounding just a bit pleading around the edges. She had been calling him Lin Quing in her mind while verbally calling my phoenix, just as she had done in her past life. Wang Yuè tilted her head and a small smile appeared on her lips as she decided to play along. "Well then, my little phoenix, what is your name?" "Wang Yuè," Lin Quing answered. A small shock spread through her at hearing the name she had painstakingly picked out for him in his last, but had never been brave enough to call him by it. A small yet radiant smile spread on her lips as she realized that he had read her journals in their previous life. "It's nice to finally meet you, Wang Yuè. Does this mean you'll stop sneaking into my bed?" she asked in a teasing tone of voice, a small smile still on her lips. Lin Quing's body went still. "You knew?" he asked in a small voice, his confident smile fading. Wang Yuè nodded, her lips twisting into a smirk. You did not hide it very well, she answered simply. Does that mean I can't sleep in the same bed anymore? Lin Quing asked in a pleading tone, a smile on his lips. This was the first time he had ever spoken to Wang Yuè like this, and for some reason it made her heart flutter. I never said that. You don't need to sneak in. She brought her hand up and gently patted the top of his head, an action she did frequently while he was a bird. We're family after all. Lin Quing leaned his face down and nuzzled her neck. We are, he said softly. Wang Yuè suppressed the shiver that wanted to rise in him. Instead, she brought her hand up and patted his head again, feeling his long, silky hair slide through her fingers. Lin Quing landed them softly on the ground, his arms still around her. Wang Yuè was a little curious to know what had happened for him to change so much. Before, he would have never gone close enough to her to touch her, but here was almost desperately holding on to him. But she didn't ask him anything. Maybe one day she would tell him about her memories of the previous life, but not right now. Shall we go home? She asked instead. Lin Quing, his head still buried in her neck, nodded. Okay, his warm breath spanned across her neck. He finally let her go and the two of them made their way back to the cottage. As soon as they entered, Lin Quing wrapped his arms around her from behind, his body pressed close to his. Wang Yuè brought her hands up and placed them on his. Is everything all right, Yichen? She asked, calling him by the name he had chosen. It is now, he said, his face buried into her hair. When it was time for them to go to sleep, Lin Quing did not hide his presence but slept with her held tightly in his arms.